So the next thing on today's agenda is change file whilst active. This is a new feature that we introduced back in 2022. It's a way to reduce the downtime required when making structural changes to large database files. The first thing I wanted to tell you was the feedback so far has been excellent. Those of you who are using it appear to really like it. In fact, some of you have started to use change file whilst active for all files and not just large files. So we couldn't be more happy with the result. Now, a significant number of you have very large files that are constantly growing. However, online applications like online banking, for example, or online shop fronts require 24/7 availability. And a lot of organizations are starting to work in a zero or non-zero zero or near zero downtime environment. And finding the time to install application database changes is especially challenging in such a fast-paced development environment where CI/CD processes mean that changes are much more frequent than they used to be. Because of this, what we tend to see is customers using workaround processes. So rather than adding new field to a file or changing the structure of existing files, many of you are adding new files so that you can avoid the downtime associated with changing an existing file. This, of course, makes the application more complex, and it also there's a performance hit that a lot of customers are realizing when they add these new database tables. Changes that traditionally required hours or even days of downtime now only need a few minutes, thanks to change file whilst active. It's built into RDOi. In fact, it's built into RDO deployment. And again, we've done this at no additional cost. So customers with current maintenance upgrading to the latest releases have access to change file whilst active without any additional license fee required. All you need to do is upgrade to version 10 and start to configure it. During the development, we created several scenarios that represent how our customers use or how you use our products. So we created representative sets of logical files, views and constraints, and application dependencies, so program dependencies over physical files. And we ran lots of test scenarios. So you can see, looking in the middle there at the large blue column, this represents a file that we created. It had 2 billion records, and it was over 870 gigabytes in size. Now we ran a conversion of that database file using the traditional LMI process, and that process is removing the logicals, renaming the physical, creating the new physical, copy the data from the old to the new, and then recreating all the logicals and physicals and dependencies. That took 9 hours and 19 minutes of downtime. We then tried that with change file while active, and we reduced that 9 hours down to just under 4 minutes. So that's a massive saving. That's over 99% saving. It makes changes much less complex and allows you to focus on your modernization initiatives rather than implementing workarounds to address your operational problems. Something else I wanted to point out here is if you look at that column on the far right, it says in the description over 2 terabytes. Previous versions of LMI had a file size limit of 2 terabytes, and we've removed that limit now in the latest version of LMI. And so we created a 2 terabyte file and we ran a data conversion. It took 7 minutes. There's no the before says 0 because it just wasn't possible to do that before. But converting a 2 terabyte file requires 7 minutes and 1 second of downtime. Okay, let's go back to Andy, and Andy's going to show you how easy it is to set up CFWA. Andy.
Thanks, Chris. Great. So I thought I'd just start by showing you how the files are selected with CFWA. So as Chris mentioned, it's done using deployment. So on a deployment menu, you look at a deployment profile, and you'll see this option available once you're using the version where CFWA is available. Select files deployed with CFWA. And if I press number 5, this will show me basically all of the data files that are available within that particular release of that application that are selectable for the CFWA process. And then you just need to basically use option 1 to select for deployment with CFWA, and then you will see a chevron like this next to the files that you've selected to be processed with using the CFWA method. Now, once you've done that, and anytime these two files are edited in this release, they're going to use the CFWA process. So for the purpose of this presentation today, I took the liberty of just pre-creating a task, and I have put one of those files, I've edited it, and I put it into this task, and we're now going to promote it to the next environment so that you can see how the CFWA process works. Now, I could choose to do this from the portal by going into the pipeline like you saw me do before and promoting this task, or you could choose to do it back at the green screen. So let's do this from the green screen just so you can see. In this task, there's my file that we have, and I'm going to select that I want to promote this like you normally would using option 7. And then it needs a deployment profile, not an install live profile. And that's because you'll see in a moment we stop it at the receive step and then finish off the install once you're ready. Now, just continuing through these steps, I select the deployment profile that I've configured for my CFWA. And then you can see the last auto start step here is set to 3. Now, this is the big difference with CFWA. Basically, all of the heavy lifting of this process is done on the receive step and not on the install step. So it used to be the install step that used to try and get an exclusive lock on the file, and that was the issue. That's what took a lot of the time. So now we're doing it on the receive step, and we're using temporary libraries that nobody else is using, which has no locks on it. We also start a journal process off, which I'll show you in a moment, that continues to look at the live file. It just does a read, no locks, and it takes any new transactions that actually apply to the live file and uses the CFWA process to apply them to our temporary file that we've got in our temporary library. So you could start a receive step off. You could start the process that I'm about to do now on a Monday morning. It might have to process 16, 20 million records, which might take till Thursday morning to finish. But it's fine because the live file is still being used by your live users. We're not interrupting that. And the journal is going to continue to take any transactions from the live file and apply them to our temporary one until you're ready to finish the last step off, which only takes seconds or minutes. So let me show you this running. I'm going to press enter and start the process off. As I do, I'm just going to jump over very quickly into this other session. I want you to keep an eye on this Aldon DMI subsystem, and you will basically see the other jobs that are now going to get submitted as part of the CFWA process. Now, very, very quickly, there was another job of change physical file there, which was already finished, which has processed the transactions. And then it's left this one here. If I just look in the job log, this shows me that the file that I'm deploying is using my temporary library, and that it's created the journal now, which is monitoring the live file. And as the production users are still using that, it's taking those live transactions and updating the temporary one that we've currently got. Now, at the time you're ready to finish this off, so this is where if you were just to look in the deployment menu now and look at the deployment sets, and I come down here to option 31, you can see that it's completed the receive step and it's now ready to install. So we could complete this step doing option 16 on the deployment set, as you normally can. And this is the point where you're going to need a lock on the actual file that we're going to replace. But because it's only going to be moving the file from our temporary location into the live one, it only needs seconds or minutes. So I could either choose to do the installation directly from here, or we can choose to do this from the portal by going into the deployments for this particular release. You can see at the moment, here's my deployment set. It's done the send, it's currently done the receive. I could look at the receive reports like we looked at earlier, and I can see it's a CFWA process. So all I need to do from here is finish the install step off whenever you're actually ready to replace that file. So if I just click on this now, it's now starting the final step of taking my temporary file from my temporary library, and it's moving that now into the live library. It's at this point, it does need an exclusive lock, but because it's only doing a move, it only needs it via the seconds or minutes, depending on the size of the file. Once it completes, I'll just refresh this just to show you. Once it just take a few seconds or so, and I can show you the installation report that's generated. And then that's the process complete. So I hope you can sort of see it's quite an easy step, to deploy files using the CFWA method.